Well, it's Tuesday, the 11th day, the year of the Lord 2020. The month is October. Sunny day, mostly cloudy, highs of 21 degrees Celsius here in Nairobi and lows of 13 degrees from wherever you're watching us in Kenya and around the world. This is KBC Prime Edition coming to you from Broadcasting House right here on Harithuku Road. Good evening. I am Mboya, topping this live broadcast.
Administration intends to not only focus on strengthening and deepening our capital markets to become an alternative source of development capital, but also an alternative form of investment.
Funding capital development up to 10 public enterprises to be listed on Nairobi Securities Exchange. Azimio la Umoja One Kenya coalition threatens to move to court to challenge declaration of Kenya Kwanza as majority party in the National Assembly. Coastal counties indicted for child sexual exploitation with over 6,000 cases documented. Susan Thuku is in charge of our sign language docket, our socials at KBC Channel 1, my Twitter handle at Mboya24. Straight to our top story. The government will, in the next 12 months, list up to 10 mature public enterprises in the Nairobi Securities Exchange. Speaking at the bell-ringing ceremony to mark the launch of the enhanced Nairobi Securities Exchange marketplace, President William Ruto said that this will be enabled further through the change of legislation in the current privatization law in the next 100 days, even as the new administration looks to create alternative sources of development capital. Alan Aoko opens our coverage with that report tonight.
The government is targeting the Nairobi Securities Exchange as an avenue to raise funds for capital development. In the past, the government has floated various products like initial public offers, Eurobond and rights issues that have been used to raise funds for various infrastructural developments. President William Ruto says the state plans to divest from a number of public enterprises.
My administration intends to not only focus on strengthening and deepening our capital markets to become an alternative source of development capital, but also an alternative form of investment to most Kenyans. To affirm this resolve, my administration will revitalize the capital markets by embarking on privatization of state-owned enterprises, where divestiture is overdue and strategic.
Some of the targeted entities are in banking, agriculture, aviation and the service sector. Treasury has been dilly-dallying on the issue, with President Ruto today giving the Privatization Commission 12 months to execute the process. The Capital Markets Authority has pointed out a lack of market knowledge as an impediment to Kenya's path in increasing investment opportunities in the market.
The CMA will continue to invest further in outreach programs to encourage our ecosystem of partners, many of whom are in this room, to educate the investing public on how to create wealth in the capital markets.
Stocks and exchange are complicated to the ordinary person and to small business owners. We need to raise awareness, we need to drive education, we need to simplify products, we need to improve experience, and also we need to reduce cost of access.
However, President Ruto says the government is cognizant of the need to protect and promote small investors and individual business owners that will allow participation of all Kenyans in the capital markets, even as it seeks to review current privatization laws.
Public enterprises that are mature should be listed in the next 12 months. In order for us to do this, the government is embarking on review of the existing privatization law with a view to repealing it or replacing it with a legal and less inhibiting and more facilitative policy framework to steward rapid privatization processes.
The president spoke during the launch of the enhanced NSE marketplace, which seeks to provide investment information on market activities to local and international media. Alan Aoko, Prime Edition.
Now let's move on to politics now. Azimio One Kenya coalition is threatening to move to court to challenge the ruling by the Speaker of the National Assembly, Moses Wetangula, declaring Kenya Kwanza the majority coalition in the National Assembly. Wiper Party leader Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka says that the ruling violated the Constitution and the Political Parties Act and should therefore not be allowed to stand.
The supremacy battle for the control of Parliament is headed to the courts after Azimio la Umoja vowed to contest the ruling by the National Assembly Speaker Moses Wetangula, declaring Kenya Kwanza as the majority in the House.
You know, this is a country that has come of age in terms of our democratic practice. So Kenyans, without being unnecessarily abrasive or being punitive in any manner, let us follow Constitution 2010.
Azimio One Kenya coalition principal Kalonzo Musyoka termed the ruling a mockery to the Constitution and a violation of the Political Parties Act, which sets a bad presidency in a parliamentary democracy. The Wiper Party leader challenging the Speaker to be guided by law to avoid bringing disrepute to the House.
I told you this first of all, because if you are a minority or a majority, then that influences the number in the committees. Sindio? And this is a matter ambayo nimezungumza kwamba sisi wenyewe tuko kwa mahakama. In the meantime, we have given instructions to our leadership in the House to remain seized with this matter. And I know they are.
Meanwhile, Kalonzo wants legislators allied to the coalition to shoot down names of cabinet secretaries with integrity questions.
The Appointments Committee must take this matter very seriously. And I want to ask EAC and other governance institutions to really prove the what the Kenyan taxpayer has put on their table. Yeah, if there are people in their history, some of them have been governors, some of them have been whatever, and in the history, the charges that are supposed to be leveled against them. And I want to ask the DPP as well to cooperate in these matters.
Now, Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Alliance leader Raila Odinga has urged Kenyans to be patient as leaders under the coalition work on pushing reforms to address the high cost of living. Raila, who made his remarks during a Meet the People tour right here in Nairobi, Kenya, said Kenyans were still struggling with the high cost of living despite promises made by Kenya Kwanza Brigade to come to their rescue.
Sema ati Wakenya wametoka mbali. Tunajua pale Wakenya wako wakati huu. Hali ni mbaya. Lakini vile wanasema ati baada ya dhiki ni nini? Faraja. Kwa hivyo mimi nataka kuambia nyinyi wanabunge, msikufe moyo. Msikufe moyo. Mimi sijakufa moyo. Mimi sijakufa moyo. Wakati ile ambaye Nyayo alikuwa anafuata sisi hapa. Wakati nilikuwa kusema ngwe ndani ilikwisha, sivyo? Siku ya 40 zinakuja. Siku hii ikifika nyinyi mtaona tu. Si mtaona tu. Si mimi niko hapa. Niko na subira. Kwa hivyo tutaendelea mbele. Mko tayari? Mko tayari? Bunge la wananchi. Nguvu mashinani. Bunge la wananchi. Nguvu mashinani. Nataka bunge iendelee mbele. Mmesikia ile budget yenu. Tutapeana hiyo budget yenu.
An item here now on child sexual exploitation. An estimated 6,356 children in the coastal counties of Kilifi, Kwale and Mombasa are currently engaged in sex tourism exploitation. According to a report by the International Human Rights Organization, Equality Now, the number accounts for 1.6% of the total population of 13 to 17-year-olds right across the three counties. And as Beatrice Gatonya reports, cultural norms as well as poverty are among factors contributing to child sexual exploitation.
Objectives of this meeting.
Non-governmental organization Trace Kenya says as much as the government has put in place laws and policies that protect children, there is laxity in implementing them, leaving minors exposed to the dangers that come with exploitation and abuse.
The difficult part has been the implementation of these policies in all regards. Whichever way you look at it, implementation has been the challenge in achieving the welfare of children and benefiting children in the country.
Trace Kenya Executive Director Paul Adhok further warns that offenders are using modern technology, including the internet, to widen their reach of vulnerable children.
Most people take advantage of that, particularly modern times. They use TikTok or other social media platforms to reach out to children and blackmail them after having made them expose themselves, blackmail them to then surrender for sexual favors in return and say, well, I'll not expose you as long as this did happen.
Most victims do not get justice, as many families resolve the matters in-house, while others are pushed to sexual exploitation for financial gains by family members.
These norms and laws are slowly breaking away, and fabrics that frown upon children who engage in early sexual debut are slowly seeping away, and therefore give opportunities for traffickers or exploiters of children to take advantage of the same.
Amanda Nyamane from Equality Now said a report by international human rights organization Out of the Shadows places Kenya at position 22 out of 60 countries in terms of prevention and response to child sexual exploitation and abuse.
Kenya has done quite a bit of work. The government has done quite a bit of work. But with any other country, there is more that needs to be done. We need to put children at the center of the solutions that we're looking at. So even from a legal perspective, we do need to understand what are the root causes for children and how can we assist children to ensure that they don't fall victim to child sexual exploitation and abuse.
Child rights activists acknowledge Kenya is among countries that have put in place laws and policies that protect children, but say more needs to be done to combat child sexual exploitation and abuse. Beatrice Gatonyengetich, Prime Edition.
Now, lawmakers affiliated to Azimio la Umoja coalition have asked President William Ruto to face corruption head-on. The MPs who were debating the president's speech said that for the economy to flourish, graft has to be dealt with decisively. Their counterparts from Kenya Kwanza expressed optimism that government will transform the economy.
As debate on the president's speech entered final day after 4 plenary sittings, legislators engaged on policies that can revive the economy. While the president in his speech talked of cutting down expenditure in government as a strategy to live within the budget, Azimio la Umoja MPs called for more bold measures in fighting graft.
Instead of cutting down costs, the government should come up with a wealth creation method. We are not in the mood of cutting costs, we are in the mood of creating wealth.
I think we should focus as a country on misuse of resources, on governance issues, and look at the fiscal discipline in this country, what you can call corruption. And Madam Speaker, I don't understand why the President is finding it so hard to call corruption corruption.
However, lawmakers allied to the ruling party lauded the President's plan to limit expenditure by reducing the budget for government institutions.
I've heard so many members saying that the President didn't talk about corruption. Now, Speaker, I don't believe that barking at corruption, I don't believe that shouting at corruption makes it go away. The approach adopted by our President that says that will ensure that institutions that are supposed to fight corruption are well-funded, well-resourced, well-equipped, non-Speaker.
William Ruto will be either like President Kibaki, who left us with a debt of 1.8 trillion, or he will be better. And I am one person who believes if Kenya will not change under the leadership of the chief hustler, it will never change.
Meanwhile, National Assembly has constituted its House Business Committee that is mandated with formulating the business to be transacted in the House. The committee, to be chaired by Speaker Moses Wetangula, also includes Ainabkoi MP Samuel Chepkonga, Nyandarua County MP Faith Gitau, Mandera County MP Umul Ker Kasim, Emuhaya MP Omboko Milemba, Kadhiani MP Robert Mbui, Eldas MP Adan Keinan, Ruaraka MP TJ Kajwang, Laikipia North MP Sarah Korere, and Masinga MP Joshua Mbidhi.
We have tried to achieve both regional, ethnic and gender balance and representation in line with our own standing orders of the parties that we may refer to as small parties, parties that do not constitute parliamentary political parties.
The food prices specifically is something out of this world. That is something that needs to be prioritized by this committee, that this House can be able to deal with issues that can enable the country to go back to where it should.
The House on Wednesday will establish committee on appointments that will vet members of the cabinet. The Senate also concluded formation of all its committees, with the members expected to elect their respective chairs by end of this week. Gishoki Washira, Prime Edition.
We'll be following that story for you as they put that committee in place. Well, that's a story that brings us to the end of the first part of this live broadcast. We're taking a short break. We'll be back with the second part. Stay with us.
Present you the Secretary of State, Parliamentary Parliament. Your Majesty,
Kupata Zaburi 18 mstari wa pili, dial star 811 star 817 hash. Mwenyezi Mungu ni mwamba wangu, ngome yangu na mkombozi wangu. Mungu wangu, mwamba wangu ninayemkimbilia ninapohitaji kuwa salama. Zaburi 18 mstari wa pili. Zaburi 18 mstari wa pili, dial star 811 star 817 hash. Star 811 star 817 hash.
At KBC Channel 1, we put people at the heart of events with our captivating weekly news features. Every day, we are breaking new grounds with informative, entertaining, and inspiring human interest stories. On Mondays, 9 p.m., we have The Cabinets. Tuesday, 9 p.m., we get inside the barracks for military tales. We delve in the world of cinemas and theater each Wednesday night. For the young and industrious, make a date with us every Thursday at 9 p.m. Fridays are dedicated for my culture. On Saturdays, we go back in time for history in perspective. And on Sundays, we get to know the process of how things are done and made. KBC Channel 1 News features a whole lot of wonderful viewing experience.
Welcome back now. The National Police Service Commission Tuesday interviewed 10 candidates who were shortlisted to replace the former Director of Criminal Investigation, George Kinoti. The 9 men and 1 woman will know their fate by Friday this week when the Commission submits the names of the best 3 candidates to the President, who then is expected to appoint one of them. Timothy Kipnusu with the details.
Amin Ibrahim Mohammed was the first candidate to appear before the National Police Service Commission on Tuesday morning. Amin, who is currently the head of internal affairs at DCI, exuded confidence of emerging the winner in the rigorous interview.
The interview went on very well, and I really appreciate the commissioners for having given me that time. Well, mine is basically to give strategic direction to the directorate and how I should see how I can operationalize the political manifesto of our Kenya Kwanza government.
Others who were interviewed were Esther Chepkosgei Seronei, who is currently the Bomet Police Commander, Dr. Simon Mwangi Wanderi, Eliud Kipchoge Lagat, who is currently the Director of Reforms at DCI, and Nicholas Ireri Kamwende, who is currently the Director of Planning at DCI. Also interviewed were Bernard Baraza Walumoli, a Criminal Investigation Officer in Coast Region, David Kipkosgei Birech is currently the Head of Police Reforms, Paul Jimmy Ndambuki, who works at the International Police Headquarters in France, Jonyo Michael Wisso, the former Head of Legal Services at DCI, and Gideon Nyale Mungo, who is currently the Principal Assistant to the Inspector General of Police.
We want to confirm that police, National Police Service has very competent officers. All the 10 listed that we are expecting are all serving police officers. They have very wide depth of knowledge on matters of criminal investigation. They are all career police officers, and it is good to see that the time they have invested in their career and building their career has given what they are today, and I believe we'll be able to get those who are suitable to lead our institution, DCI.
The commission will submit the top 3 candidates to the president by Friday this week. The president will within 7 days appoint one among them to head the DCI docket. Even as Kenyans wait with bated breath to know who is the next DCI boss, the fate of the 10 candidates who were vetted today now squarely lies with the National Police Service Commission, with the commission expected to forward the 3 names of the best candidates to the president for appointment. Timothy Kipnoso for Prime Edition, Nairobi.
Now, the National Disaster Management Authority and the Disaster Operations Center are calling on members of the bicameral parliament to expedite passing of the disaster management bills currently pending before the August House. The bills, if enacted, will see the strengthening of the disaster management and preparedness policies right across the national and also county governments. Achola Simon puts that story into perspective.
In the wake of extreme weather conditions occasioned by climate change, players in the disaster management sector are calling for enactment of laws that will strengthen preparedness and risk reduction mechanisms in disaster management in the country.
We have a lot of challenges relating to how legislation is actually put in place. There's a long process which you cannot short-circuit.
As a country, we've come a long way in terms of integrating disaster risk management. And the pathway seeks for collaborative efforts.
Already, parts of the northern frontier are experiencing adverse effects of drought as the region grapples yet again with lack of rains.
We are seeing disasters are increasing. They are more cyclic. They are more dangerous or more virulent. So it's important that we come together and learn to continue influencing our policy and to continue influencing the programs.
Stakeholders also want a deliberate integration of indigenous knowledge with modern scientific weather prediction methods as a means of tackling adverse weather conditions.
And we hope then that this can be shared even with other counties, other parts of the country as a way of strengthening early warning, early action.
The National Disaster Management Authority and Management Committee also wants more resources available to ensure stakeholders in the sector are well equipped to tackle any eventualities.
We need funds for prevention, funds for mitigation, preparedness, response, and
the stakeholders spoke at the onset of a 2-day symposium preceding the International Day of Disaster Risk Reduction, which will be marked on Thursday, October 13th in Kakamega County. This year's theme is Early Warning for Risk Reduction. Achola Simon, Prime Edition, Kakamega County.
MultiChoice Group has partnered with Earthshot Prize to reward innovators in climate change mitigation. As the world gears for the COP27 next month in Sharm el-Sheikh, that's in Egypt, the initiative is aimed at accelerating the circular economic model as a new way to go in safeguarding the planet Earth. And as Ruth Mboya reports, the recycling economy will be the game changer in addressing the waste management problem that has been a headache in most cities around the world.
Healing the planet has been a major concern for nations as climate change effects continue to be witnessed across the board. In this regard, MultiChoice Group has embarked on accelerating the ambition of climate innovators, activists and scientists across Africa and around the world by joining hands with the Ashot Prize.
It really does say very loudly that we are very committed to the climate action that we have just promised to be able to be part of as a MultiChoice Group.
Speaking during the official launch of the Pan-African Global Partnerships, the Ashot Prize Chief Executive Director Hannah Jones said they are committed to support thousands of lives by solving challenges.
Everything that we do in the Earthshot Prize is centered on helping innovators to get their solutions out to the world, to spark the world's imagination, and then to get support for them so they can scale.
The circular economic model, which has been inspired by nature, is meant to scale up the climate mitigation efforts in the next 10 years.
And we want to shift that narrative because we don't want Africa to move away from being seen as a victim and move to being a continent where solutions emanate from, and global solutions. We believe they lie here, but they haven't yet been exposed.
All the initiative, waste management, reforestation, all those are the initiative that will be awarded by these awards. The larger population of this country is young people. If you do not involve the young people and the under 35 and below into environmental management, they are the ones to suffer more.
During the launch, Sanaji manufacturers based in Athi River, one of the finalists in 2021 Ashot Prize, was hailed for its industrial revolution that does not harm the planet.
When you're hearing voices from the US, from Europe, from the UK saying that this is a really investable idea, that helps us enormously.
The factory produces regenerative fertilizers, feeds and fuels through a circular economic approach that guarantees a green and waste-free future. Ruth Mboya for Prime Edition.
On scales of justice, a Nairobi High Court has issued orders stopping contempt proceedings against Kenya Broadcasting Corporation acting editor-in-chief Millicent Awor, pending a ruling on the matter. In adherence to the orders, trial magistrate Eunice Nyutu directed the case to be mentioned on the 18th of October 2022. In other matters from the court, Busia Senator Okia Omtata has filed a petition seeking restoration of powers of the Clerk of the Senate as the Secretary and Chief Executive Officer of the Parliamentary Service Commission. Sarafin Nairobi gives us the details from the courts.
High Court Judge Esther Miners issued orders stopping contempt proceedings against acting editor-in-chief Millicent Awor before Magistrate Eunice Nyutu, pending a ruling. In the orders, the court further directed the Deputy Registrar to call for proceedings of the lower court case that gave rise to the impugned orders and place the same before the judge. The contempt summons was served in relation to proceedings to a multi-million National Youth Service hearing in March 2022. The case will be mentioned on the 18th of October 2022. Meanwhile, Busia Senator Okia Omtata has filed a petition seeking the restoration of powers of the Clerk of the Senate. This comes after the National Assembly, through two amendments to the Public Finance Management Act 2014 and 2019 and through the Parliamentary Service Act, allegedly stripped the Clerk of the Senate the constitutional mandate as the Secretary and CEO of the Parliamentary Service Commission.
The second sentence.
And a 6-year protracted legal battle between Sealink Holdings and the judiciary over breach of a lease contract continues, with the plaintiff closing their case. The case follows a suit against the judiciary after the Court of Appeal judges declined to relocate to the leased ultra-modern building over fears of radiation from transmission masts in an adjacent property, leading to alleged massive loss by Sealink Holdings, now seeking compensation amounting to over 300 million shillings. In a hearing before Justice David Mugomwangi, an expert witness, Lawrence Oriko was put to task by the defense lawyer Moses Kipkogei to explain if there would have been any effects on the judge's health arising from the radiations.
One of it even from the technical guidelines, and the only finding that have been justified are only two, which generally relates to thermal increase in body temperature.
The defense hearing is set to kick off on the 25th of November 2022. Serafina Robi for Prime Edition.
Now, they say that our past experiences influence our worldview and makes us act in special ways. Such is the case with Timothy Liani, who is a founder of Brook Center and Autistic Children. Inspired by his painful past, Liani set out to help the underprivileged, especially children. Here is Liani's story, as filed by our own Nisi Imano.
In the heart of Zimmerman Estate in Nairobi lies Brook Center for the Deaf and Autistic Children, a registered charitable organization that takes care of children with special needs. For Timothy, the center was born out of passion to provide education to special and needy cases, an initiative that was inspired by what he terms as a painful personal experience.
It was an uncle, yeah. So a young person growing up, he had autism. So one day, of course, he used to walk around, go to the nearby markets, come back. So at some point in time, as he grew up, he went and never came back. Up to now, it's more than 25 years. So it's very tragic.
Timothy says his missing uncle was showing signs and symptoms, but those days disabilities were generally attached to culture, superstitious beliefs and traditions.
Children with autism are loners, they're hyperactive. Some have learning disabilities, others have sleeping disorders, intellectual problems. Others have different types of sensitivities.
It was this experience that triggered Timothy's quest to sensitize the community on people living with disabilities, particularly children with autism.
Throughout my life, there's this set objective to ensure that I bridge the gap, to ensure that children who live with special needs never get missing, and they should always find safe custody for them and also ensure they rehabilitate to become better people.
With proper diagnosis and training through therapy, most conditions can be handled.
Not just therapies, interventions, because of course a therapist will be involved, there will be an orthopedic, someone who is a specialist with the bones, to be able to do proper assessments for assistive devices like the walking aids, the standing aid, the sitting aid, and they overcome.
Timothy cares for these vulnerable children with the help of volunteer doctors, social workers, in addition to the in-house therapists, nurses, trained caregivers, and special education teachers.
In this place, you don't focus on perfection, you focus on progress. So progress means I could be able to stand, but I couldn't be able to make a step. But now I can step. And we've worked with more than 427 children, successfully reintegrated back to communities.
There are more than 1 billion people with some form of disability, accounting for 15% of the world population, according to the United Nations. Closer home, persons with disabilities make up 2.2% of the Kenyan population.
For most of the world, October is the month that has been set aside to make people aware of children with learning disabilities. But for Timothy Liani, this is his daily passion, and it is his hope that one day children living with special needs will be able to access free healthcare and education. Reporting for KBC from Zimmerman in Nairobi County, I'm Nisi Imano.
Thank you, Imano. I stumbled on an article, that talked about autistic children and having a dominant left side of their brain, excelling in those jobs that require precision, repetition, like database analytics and updating of coding and basically computer, cyber computer and security. So something that institutions like that need to think about also. On military tales, Brigadier retired Dr. Robert Kabage served in the Kenyan military at a time when war was threatening to tear apart the African continent. He was in the very first Kenyan military contingent to Sierra Leone. That was in 1999. He was deployed as a disarmament officer in the peacekeeping mission that would facilitate the peace process. Here is his story on this week's episode of Military Tales.
Robert Gishangi Kabage's ambition in life was to be a teacher, so he went ahead to get an untrained teacher job in Nyeri at St. Paul's Seminary right after his A-levels.
When I went to St. Paul's Seminary, I had a colleague of mine who had come from Kakamega High School. And this colleague of mine had a challenge in one of his feet had a challenge. So he always used to look at me and say, if I was like you, I would join the military. Next recruitment of the military that was advertised, I went and I was just recruited.
He joined the military on the 14th of August 1981, reporting to the Armed Forces Training School, Lanet.
Later, after 3-4 years, I joined the Logistics Corps. So I came to Kahawa as a logistics officer. And I went through the logistics line up to the highest appointment within the logistics. I was the co-commander of the Kenya Army Logistics Corps.
Shortly after, Kabage went for his very first mission to Sierra Leone, heading the demobilization, disarmament and reintegration program.
At that time, the situation was terrible. Law and order had broken down. The rebels had taken over the country. But by the time we got there, they had already signed a peace agreement, a comprehensive peace agreement. And now they had agreed that they want peace. That's why we were deployed there as a peacekeeping contingent. So my role was to facilitate the peace process by ensuring or making sure that I prepare those combatants, all those people who are involved in fighting, to lay down their arms and be reintegrated into the society.
Kabage had to move to the hotspots in the countryside and identify centers with people who wanted to be disarmed.
We had to give them a facility whereby they could come, bring their weapons, hand over their weapons, they are registered, and then they are prepared for subsequent stages. Because once this person lays down their weapon, they need to be assisted to resettle back into the community.
In Sierra Leone, Kabage witnessed the great atrocities of political conflict, roadblocks, women and children with hands chopped off.
Sometimes they would give you short sleeve. Short sleeve is they chop you from here. Long sleeve, they would chop you from here. So what actually one time touched me is when I saw a 2-year girl with both hands chopped. It was very sad.
But his work wasn't without challenges, for the missions were also very dangerous and risky.
I remember in May 2000, I was in a place called Makeni, and I had a British officer with me. We had gone to try and set up a DDL camp. We almost got kidnapped. We were actually assisted by a Kenyan military contingent that was in that area.
Over the years, he went to other nations in pursuit of peace.
After Sierra Leone, I also had the opportunity of being appointed a defense attaché to our Kenya mission to the United Nations to address issues of peacekeeping, deployment of our peacekeepers, police, military, and prisons.
Brigadier retired Dr. Robert Kishangi Kabage was in the very first peacekeeping Kenyan contingent to land in Sierra Leone in December of 1999. 35 years later, he retires from the Kenya Army, joins with like-minded individuals in the pursuit for peace in Africa and globally. Reporting for KBC from Runda in Kiambu County, Amnesty Emmanuel.
The legends and familiar charms will grace KBC once again. Don't miss the...
I said don't look at me, you understand? Get out of here. I never talk to the servants. As for you, you're finally eating your words. Because for many years you made me feel bad.
I'm sorry, my son, but I won't do it. Gonzalo and I have nothing to talk about anymore.
Well, listen, maybe you have nothing to say, but he does.
Still, though, something doesn't make me feel at ease. I honestly don't think that my son had done it sincerely as they made me believe.
Now, why would you think that? I could have gotten 3% more. Anyway, I still have what I will get from my dad further on. I think it's definitely a good idea to go to the hospital to see him. What do I get out of this?
Well, a lot of things. We are talking about a lot of money. I already told you, Tobias.
I don't want your money. What is going to happen if things go wrong?
I guess she already told you about me, right? Tobias? Answer me, Tobias.
Welcome to today's business. Corporate Kenya is urging government to fast-track its divestiture from state-owned entities. The Nairobi Securities Exchange Chair, Kiprono Kitoni, says that the delayed listing of the companies by government has slowed down activities at the BOAS. The National Treasury plans to offload its stake in about 10 listed companies such as KenGen, Kenya Power, Kenya Airways, and the Consolidated Bank. Regina Manyara with that report.
The National Treasury has in the last 10 years mooted a plan to offload its stake in a number of state-owned enterprises, among them Consolidated Bank, East African Portland Cement, Kenya Airways and Safaricom, to spur activity at the Nairobi Securities Exchange. However, these plans have been frustrated by slow and complicated state bureaucracy. Despite the challenges, some firms have success stories.
But more notably, Your Excellency, we have really penetrated the MSME market. Today, as a bank, we have over 1.9 million Kenyans in the MSME market with us. We went into fund management. We have a subsidiary business for fund management.
For Cooperative Bank, its first IPO raised over 5.4 billion shillings, and the funds came in handy in supporting the transformation agenda of the bank.
The privatization of state-owned enterprises will mark a decisive point in broadening Kenya's appeal to both domestic and international investors.
To reduce the billions of shillings in government bailouts to some entities, the private sector is calling for privatization of a number of parastatals to improve management and increase efficiency.
Equally request the government to consider releasing additional shares in already listed companies, KCB, Safaricom and the likes, enabling us to increase more opportunities, revitalize interest among Kenyans, as well as to help address corporate governance issues.
They say privatization will help reduce and eventually eliminate the need for capital grants, which are increasingly denting Kenya's budget. The boss will leverage on the program to increase awareness of the available investment opportunities and attract foreign direct investments.
The capital markets, the NSE legal framework to enforce very strong corporate governance. This is what has enabled Equity in the last 3 years to be able to raise 150 billion Kenya shillings of foreign loans.
Regina Manyara reporting for Prime Edition.
Parliament should amend the Seed Act to make it mandatory for seed banks to be created at the village level to protect Kenya's biodiversity as GMOs are introduced into the food system. Ann Maina, the National Coordinator of Biodiversity Association of Kenya, says that farmers might opt for high-yielding GMOs for commercial reasons at the expense of indigenous foods that might become extinct without the seed banks.
The Azimio la Umoja leaders are urging the government to increase area under irrigation and subsidize farm inputs to increase yields instead of relying on GMO for food security.
The Kenyan multi-billion food market, SSA, is susceptible to manipulation by profit-hungry multinationals, handing over our food sovereignty to corporate manipulators.
The Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Alliance want the government to shelve the rollout of GMO into the country until further audits on the health safety is carried out through stakeholder sensitization.
The BT maize seed. This will not bring down the cost of maize since the price is artificially manipulated by the profit-oriented multinationals.
Utafiti gani ambayo kanisa ya Kenya itafanya kuliko yale ambayo yamefanyiwa na nchi zile ambazo zimeendelea kisayansi kama Ujerumani? Utafiti gani utafanya hapa?
The leaders add that local seed companies are at risk of being edged out of business by seed multinationals as well as losing its indigenous seeds.
Lakini kule kuna makampuni ambayo ndio wametengeneza hiyo mambo ya GMO. Ambayo inataka kuuza mbegu hizo. Na hizo mbegu hizo ikishatumika katika ardhi basi huwezi tena kurudisha ile ingine ambayo inaitwa ile ya natural.
Any Kenyan seed will forever be lost to mutated forms of crops. GM crops cannot coexist with organic and non-GM crops due to contamination.
Elsewhere, a consortium of NGOs want Parliament to amend the Seed Act to make it mandatory for seed banks to be created at village level to protect Kenya's biodiversity as GMOs are introduced into the food system.
This is a first step towards reaching out to government agencies and to ensure that that law is changed because it does not recognize farmer-managed seed systems.
The smallholder farmers, and they give us as a country the identity of the country. If we go to eastern part of Kenya, there are those foods that we associate with eastern part of Kenya. If we go to western part of Kenya, there are those foods that are there, and in every other aspect of the country.
Indigenous seeds from material perspective, but they lost their tradition because of the loss of seed.
The NGOs say farmers might opt for high-yielding GMOs for commercial reasons at the expense of indigenous foods that might become extinct without the seed banks. They say introduction of GMOs in Kenya's food system could increase cases of malnutrition since those cropping genetically modified seeds might avoid intercropping to maximize yields.
Finding a situation where, like if you look at America, look at South Africa, GMOs are grown in monocultures. If you visit a small-scale farmer in Kenya, they are growing a diversity because they know the rains might fail. So they are growing their small maize, they are growing their cassava, they are growing their pumpkins, they are growing their beans.
The non-governmental organizations also want post-harvest losses estimated at about 30%, drastically reduced to ensure food security. Benson Rioba reporting for Prime Edition.
Now, central banks in Africa have been urged to relook the regulation of financial technology in order to increase uptake in Fintech in the continent. Experts speaking at the Investment in Africa conference in London, England, say overregulation is hindering uptake, especially among those who have been locked out by the traditional financial systems. Betty Kiptum reports.
A World Bank report shows that poverty is falling more slowly in Africa than other regions. With climate vulnerability and high debts coupled with depreciating currency, the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals in the continent continues to remain a dream. Financial technology has now been fronted as the solution to achievement of the SDGs. In the recent years, there has been a ballooning of activity in the Fintech scene, where financial companies and startups use artificial intelligence and other tech in their day-to-day activities. Despite the tremendous growth, players say uptake of financial technology in the continent is hindered by overregulation.
We're going much quicker in some of the things that we're doing, and it sometimes takes the regulators a little bit longer to catch up. So, and particularly around KYC. So, we just think it's unfair for people to be excluded from financial services because they don't have the documents that we've kind of traditionally expected people to have.
The regulator has a job, and that's to protect the consumer. And if you've seen in crypto and in blockchain all the scams that's come about, because there's not enough regulation, I'm not saying over-regulation, I'm saying not enough regulation, the regulators play a very important role. And I would like to see a lot more of that within the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs.
They say the legal framework governing fintech needs to be relooked to ensure that it does not lock out those who have been locked out by traditional financial solutions.
And we say the regulators should take a different approach and maybe have a more tiered structure. If people are transacting $5 a day, they're not financing international terrorism, and we should create our regulations appropriately.
But when you look at it, just starting with poverty alleviation all the way through to partnerships, I think there's a very significant role that fintech in its broadest sense can play in providing an equal platform or, advancing most of the SDGs.
They said that there is need for more innovation that covers the needs of specific groups, such as women who have for long been locked out of the financial systems.
Technology and financial inclusion is the lifeblood of achieving SDGs. We're not going to be able to achieve them without doing much more by way of financial inclusion. And I think that's worse for women generally. They're not as likely to be involved in formal finance.
The global fintech market is anticipated to grow at a compounded annual growth rate of 20% to reach a market value of $305 billion by 2025. Betty Kiptum, Prime Edition.
Now, low-income earners are being encouraged to explore off-plan housing projects as an option for home ownership. Mahiga Homes Managing Director Patrick Mushoki says off-plan housing projects offer developers capital to acquire construction material at affordable prices, thus bringing down the overall cost of housing units. Irene Muchuma Odim reports.
Mahiga Homes Managing Director Patrick Mushoki says off-plan home ownership is an affordable way to purchase a housing unit.
Some people tell me even 20 million is affordable. But looking at the economy, how many of those people can be able to afford 20, 30 million? So that is what drove us to this section of where we do between 3 and 6 million. And for the last 3-4 years we have been in business, we have tried to maintain that.
Mushoki says Mahiga Homes has so far delivered 300 homes to off-plan housing investors.
If you look at the setup, the master bedroom is for the man and the wife. So in one room you can put the boys, and the other room you put girls. So that means morals will be upheld. In our estates, that house sits on a standalone, on its own plot, measuring 50 by 100. That ensures you have enough space that you can plant grass, you can host people in that place. But still within an estate, we also provide areas where you can hold a party as an estate.
Speaking in Joska, Machakos County, Mushoki said off-plan house development offers developers the option to acquire construction materials at very affordable rates, hence drastically reducing the overall cost of housing units.
So you find a house that was supposed to go for 3 million, you end up building it at 7-8 million and still not achieve what you're looking for. But we as a company, we've been able to get into partnerships with companies. If it is cement, I'll go to Simba Cement and get it at a manufacturing cost.
According to Mushoki, buying off plan will additionally give an investor the option of tailoring the property's design to suit their needs. Irene Mchuma Odim, Business News.
Mommy! You're here. Nana, are you okay?
Aren't you afraid that the rest of your family will be punished as well? Aren't you afraid that your legacy is going to be that of a criminal?
I'm terribly sorry. Please forgive me, my lord.
Such a beautiful pair of eyes. She's quite an attractive lady indeed, but those eyes are too good for her.
Suzanne, you seem to value her as a friend. If you don't wish to be separated from her, how about I talk to the king and have you engaged to somebody from the East Sea?
A girl can say anything when she's in love.
The world's biggest sporting T22 in Qatar. KBC Television will air live 28 selected matches, while radio will beam live all the 64 matches. We would like to bring to the attention of the public that KBC is the only station that has exclusive 2022 FIFA World Cup free-to-air FTA broadcast rights for both TV and radio in the Kenya territory, and no other media outlet. Therefore, catch all the FIFA World Cup action live and exclusive on KBC TV and radio. KBC is indeed your true sports partner.
Gonna be sticking around every tomorrow.
A very good evening to you. I do hope you're holding up well. My name is Karen Kibet. Let's take a look at the sports news. Reigning world marathon record holder Eliud Kipchoge says he has now set his eyes on retaining his Olympic title in the 2024 Olympic Games in Paris, France. Kipchoge was speaking today in Nairobi when he was feted by Isuzu East Africa for his milestone achievement after breaking the world marathon record in Berlin 3 weeks ago. Kipchoge, who is a two-time Olympic champion, said he will be taking a break after resuming ahead of his first race in April next year. Isuzu East Africa will reward Kipchoge with a new Isuzu double-cabin pickup dubbed an Eliud Kipchoge 159D Max Limited. Isuzu East Africa Managing Director Rita Kavashe said the company will also donate 1 million Kenya shillings towards Kipchoge's modern books library in Kapsiswan in Nandi County. Wimbledon doubles junior champion Angela Okutoyi has secured a scholarship to further her education and tennis career at the Auburn University in Alabama in the United States of America. Okutoyi made the announcement on her social media accounts.
She will be continuing with her tennis career and education at Auburn University. The 18-year-old will join the institution on a full 4-year scholarship, which will cover both academics and tennis. Okutoyi had been offered 30 scholarships by U.S. colleges last month, but settled for Auburn University. Okutoyi made history when she became the first Kenyan to win a Grand Slam title after partnering with Nijkamp to win the Wimbledon doubles junior title on 9th of July at the All England Club in Wimbledon, London. Currently, Angela is expected to compete in the W15 Monastir tournament in Tunisia from between the 17th and 23rd of this month, and W15 Nairobi tournament from 14th and 20th of next month at the current country club in Nairobi before moving to the US in January next year.
Congratulations, Angela. We wish you all the best. Thank you, Nora, for that report. Moving on, Gor Mahia forward Samuel Onyango has joined the Zambian Premier League side, Kabwe Warriors. Onyango, who is a former Ulinzi Stars and Sony Sugar striker, has been with Gor since 2018 after he resigned from the military. Kabwe is the second most successful club in Zambia, behind Mufulira Wanderers.
Onyango, who is 29 years old, started most of the matches last season, netting 6 goals for the 19-time champions, who finished third behind champions Tusker and Kakamega Homeboys. Onyango severed ties with Gor after being told by the technical bench officials that he was not part of the team's plans for the belated season. Onyango has been a key player for the club ever since. Gor Mahia club is currently serving a FIFA-imposed transfer ban and is not in a position to sign players due to the FIFA transfer embargo caused by various cases pertaining to failure to settle transfer fees from former players. The club will only be able to recruit players from January 2023.
Ecuador will make their 4th appearance at the FIFA World Cup next month in Qatar and is among the South American countries that qualified for the Global Soccer Showpiece. The finals will be televised live on KBC Channel 1.
You know what it is. Y tiene a Neymar delante de la línea de delanteros para armar el fútbol.
Ecuador finished 4th in the CONMEBOL qualification group to qualify for the finals behind table-topping Brazil, second-placed Argentina, and Uruguay third. They have cemented their position as South America's 4th greatest team alongside Chile, Colombia, Paraguay, Peru, and powerhouses Brazil, Argentina, and Uruguay. This will be Ecuador's 4th World Cup. They made their debut in Japan and South Korea in 2002, before appearing in Germany 2006 and Brazil 2014. Their best ever finish was a run to the round of 16 in 2006. In Qatar, Ecuador is in Group A with host Qatar, the Netherlands, and Senegal, and they will open their campaign against host Qatar. The team will rely on experienced heads such as former West Ham and Everton striker Enna Valencia and Carlos Gruezo, but have plenty of exciting youngsters coming through as well, with Moises Caicedo and Piero Hikapi being the standout names.
You know what it is.
English Premier League side Chelsea will be without midfielder N'Golo Kante for tonight's European Champions League group game against AC Milan at San Siro Stadium. Kante has not travelled to Italy after suffering a reaction to an existing hamstring injury in training.
French World Cup winner N'Golo Kante has not played since the 2-2 Premier League draw with Tottenham on 14th of August. Morocco winner Hakim Ziyech will also be missing for Chelsea at the San Siro through illness. Meanwhile, Lionel Messi has been ruled out of Paris Saint-Germain's Championship League fixture with Benfica because of a calf injury. Presnel Kipembe, Nuno Mendes and Renato Sanchez are also set to miss the fixture for the host at Parc des Princes. PSG top Group H on 7 points, level with Benfica, with Juventus third. Manchester City are without defender John Stone for their Champions League trip to face Copenhagen tonight. Stone sustains a hamstring injury on England duty last month, and the centre-half has not yet returned for training. Right-back Kyle Walker and midfielder Calvin Phillips shoulder also remain on the sidelines.
And that report brings us to the end of our sports news tonight. My name is Karen Kibet. I'll see you tomorrow with more sports news. Do have yourself a peaceful night. I hand you back to my colleague, Tom Mboya. Tom?
Marakwet, I want to thank you for that delivery, and also many thanks to our sign language interpreter, excuse me, Susan Thuku. That brings us to the end of this live broadcast on behalf of the entire KBC Prime Edition team, including Amos Ogueri. Thank you for watching. I'm Tom Mboya. Good night from Nairobi, Kenya.
Trezeguet is in the centre here, and it's a chance for France, and he's hit the post. Oh, nearly the first goal of the 2002 World Cup. And it's Djorkaeff who gets caught in possession here. And it was Daf who put El Hadj Diouf away, and they've got two striding up in the centre here. Bouba Diop is there! Oh, and Bouba Diop is there! And Senegal has scored the first goal of the 2002 World Cup! After half an hour's play, Papa Bouba Diop! Oh. Just look at this celebration! And for the 2002 World Cup starts with a stunning result. Senegal have beaten the world champions in the opening.
With my family seated, can I listen to that music? With my father, with my mother seated together, can we listen to that music together?
Just remove your father from the equation. Kila mtu akae kando. We listen to Zuchu. Everybody, when you go to TikTok, a 13-year-old is saying, what is it called?
Sukari.
Yeah, not even Sukari. This song about Nyumba Ndogo.
Is it music supposed to be food for the heart?
Okay, I'm not too sure about that. Is co-parenting working? Is it a fad? Is it something that we're just glorifying? I am not your enemy. You're not my enemy. We just need to live separately so that and then raise this child together. You see, it doesn't have to be toxic for you to. So what's that? It's conscious uncoupling.
So do you think he would work with Otile Brown again if things were different right now?
Don't look at me, you understand? Get out of here. I never talk to the servants. As for you, you're finally eating your words. Because for many years you made me feel bad.
I'm sorry, my son, but I won't do it. Gonzalo and I have nothing to talk about anymore.
Well, listen, maybe you have nothing to say, but he does. Still, though, something doesn't make me feel at ease. I honestly don't think